Hi, this is Terry Ensberg. My quote for today is your best teacher is your last mistake. When I read this, I started to wonder what is my last mistake? And I thought about it and then I realized what it was. And here's a description of it. Because of COVID, we have not seen our son, daughter-in-law, and two grandchildren who live in Connecticut since Christmas. And as we close in on it being a year, I have thought more and more about how could we see them? Is there any way we could do it, without getting on an airplane, or is it safe enough to get on an airplane? I don't want them to fly to us because they're little kids. They have young children, 1 and 4, who would touch everything, put their hands in their mouths, all that kind of stuff. And it would be so difficult and actually impossible to do it in any kind of controlled way as far as the virus goes. So we had been racking our brains thinking, what if we drove our RV cross country? But that would be 4 days straight of driving 8 hours a day, and that seems very, very difficult. And what if we drove our car and stayed at hotels? What if we just flew? On and on. Just what if we met in the middle somehow? I was struggling. And and my husband has cancer, although he is in remission now. And by remission, I mean undetectable with the currently available tests that we have. So, but it makes me more conservative about what he is exposed to. So really, I was racking my brain. So I decided to ask other people for their opinions, and I called our son Luke. And sometimes I ask Luke, and sometimes I ask Joey. But Luke has more flexible work hours than Joey, so Luke gets more of the brunt of my questions. The last time I called Joey, he was in a meeting with his boss, and I called him because I got stuck on a jigsaw puzzle. So he wasn't too happy about that. But I called Luke, and he said something I had completely not thought about at all, which was, why don't I go? He said, why don't you talk to Dad and find out how much he really wants to go? Maybe he doesn't want to take a big trip, get on a plane, drive across the country, whatever. Maybe he's okay with FaceTiming under these circumstances. He said to me, maybe you want to go more than he does, and you could go without him. You could get on a plane, fly first class to have more space around you, and do it that way. I thought, wow. I've never hesitated to fly someplace by myself, but I hadn't thought of it in this context at all. For some reason, I just not even thought of it. So I sat down with him, and it was kind of hard to get him to tell me exactly how he felt, but eventually he did, and he said, really, I'm not sure that I do want to take the risk of going anywhere. And we do have FaceTime. That is a good thing to get by with until we can actually see each other again. And I realized then that we have to wait and see what happens with scans in November and with how bad COVID is between now and Christmas. But that if I end up doing this, the best way would be for me to go by myself. And then if I were to get symptomatic there, I would stay there to quarantine. And if I got symptomatic coming back, I would stay in the camper. Not really, I would make him stay in the camper. But, it wouldn't be a perfect solution because, of course, I could still bring COVID back to him, but it would be a partial solution. And at this point in the life of this virus, we are going for what we can get and not going for 100% of anything. There's no guarantee about anything, but still life does have to go on a little bit here and there. So I was reflecting on the mistake I had made, which was to not play enough with the parameters of the problem so that solutions were excluded without me even realizing it. And if you change even one limit or requirement of the problem, you end up with a whole different set of solutions. So I have a list here of parameters that I have seen other people have. Sometimes they were aware they did, sometimes they weren't, but they couldn't seem to let go of them. Some of this is me, much of it is other people I've known. And I want you to ask yourself, what parameters do you have in your life that you could let go of even one and have a different outcome? So here is the list. What if you didn't have to drive a nice car? What if you didn't have to live in the town you grew up in? What if you didn't allow yourself to be weighed at the doctor's office? I don't. I just tell them I pass. What if you could wear sleeveless tops in hot weather even if you hate your arms? I know several women who, no matter how hot it is, will not wear a sleeveless top. What if you allowed yourself to eat takeout a couple times a week? What if you put your kids up for adoption? Just kidding, forget I said that. What if you could learn a new computer program? What if you didn't have to wear makeup? What if you could work part-time instead of full-time, or the other way around? What if you didn't have to water plants? What if you could say something back to people who are rude to you? What if you could wear colors and styles that some idiot said don't look good on you 15 years ago? What if you never got your car washed? I have gone months without getting my car washed, and it's funny because then people will point out to me that my car is dirty. You know, they'll look at it and go, do you know your car's really dirty? Now, I'm very picky about the inside of my car, but not the outside. So they'll say, look at it, wow, do you know your car's dirty? And I'm like, not my biggest problem, so I know, don't care right now. Do they really think I don't notice that? What if you didn't finish something you started? What if you picked one thing you've always assumed you had to do and didn't do it? What if you didn't mow the grass? What if you balanced your meals over a week instead of a day or within a meal? What if you deliberately did something you know you're bad at, like bowling or drawing or singing or cooking or floral arrangement or race car driving? Again, just kidding, don't do that one if you're bad at it. What if you had some money you didn't have to account for to anyone? What if you skipped a holiday? Now, as I read this list, you probably thought from time to time, oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't not mow my lawn or wash my car or skip a holiday or whatever. And the way I kind of test that to see how reasonable or unreasonable it is if you know other people who don't do those things, then you know they don't really need to be done. And I have found that really helpful to me. One of the ones for me is, what if you could live in a condo instead of a house? Over our years, we've owned 2 houses and 2 townhouses. And I really like townhouses a lot. We now live in a house, this is the 3rd house, because we happen to live in a town where our office is. We specifically wanted to get close to our office, but it's just not a townhouse town. Some towns have a lot of complexes and some don't. And at the time we had a dog and we needed outdoor space for her, even a patio would have been fine. But we couldn't find anything that had a way where we could install a dog door and have patio space for her. So we ended up getting a house. But I know a lot of people who would not own a condo or a townhouse because they just wouldn't. And sometimes they'll say, oh no, I don't want to hear my neighbors. I have far more, 100 times more noise from my neighbors here than I did from the townhouse we lived in before. There's no comparison at all. So that doesn't necessarily hold true. So anyway, my point is simply, if you are stuck on something, reconsider the foundational decisions you've made and see if you move around the blocks that the whole thing rests on, if that will lead you to a different conclusion or a different solution. And that especially is true for you, my grandchildren. Keep an open mind. Thanks for listening to me. Bye.